basic to get us started. So why do we need clinical studies to start with? We want to find new and better treatments. Question? No. We want to find new and better treatments for all kinds of conditions, like lipodystrophy. We want to check if the treatments are safe and are they working. It might be a safe treatment, but it won't work on the patient population. And we want to check it on real patients, not lab animals. We want to check it on real patients, on real people, and get their experiences as well. So we have several phases, we call them, in clinical studies. And we start with the preclinical phase. So a researcher thinks he has a new treatment and he wants to check if this treatment will work, on what disease or condition. So he will do some lab tests, and he will check this treatment on preclinical models, we call them. So it might be mice, rats, monkeys, pigs, etc. And we are doing these preclinical studies to show that the treatment that we suggested can work and is safe on some kind of living entity. And once we showed that our treatment is working, and it doesn't matter if it's working well or not, but it has some kind of efficacy, and it is safe in some degree to the animal, we can go ahead and move to the phase 1 clinical study. Phase 1 clinical study, also called first in human clinical studies. It's the first time that we are giving the new treatment to a human patient. So this is for a new treatment. If we have a new molecule, new treatment, this is called first in human clinical study. But if we are taking an already made medication or treatment and use it on a new condition for this medication, like using metrelaptine, not in lipodystrophy, we need to go back to the phase 1 clinical studies, and this is called the safety clinical study or safety phase. We check the safety of the new treatment or the already existing treatment on our patients, and we check what dose do we want to give it to the patient. So usually we start with a very low dose because we don't know what it will do in the human. And then we go up a little bit and up and up and up until we get into like the max dose. And the max dose is the dose that will be the highest, but will not have substantial side effects on the patients. And the phase 1 study is a very small group of people. Usually, we don't put several people at the same time into a phase 1 clinical study. We take one patient, give him the medication or her the medication, we wait a little bit and we see if they're fine with the medication, we will take another patient and give them the medication. So it's a step-by-step approach. Then we move to phase 2 clinical studies. We have some more patients in this clinical study. We know the dose probably of the medication that we want to give, and we now want to see if we have efficacy or if the drug or treatment will work on the patient. So we need more patients for it from several places, not just one site or not just one hospital. And we also want to check for biomarkers, and we will touch on biomarkers a little bit later. The next step is a phase 3 clinical study. It's a big phase, multi-center, thousands of participants, if possible, like in lipodystrophy and other rare diseases, it's not possible, but as many patients as we can get into the clinical study. We already know that the drug works, we already know the dose of the new treatment, and now we want to see if it really works, not just in one place, all over the world, in varied populations, right? In Asia, in Africa, in Europe, in the US, in the Middle East. We want to see, because of the genetic changes between populations, we want to see if it's not like something that is specific to one genetic population. And then we have the phase 4 study, which is the aftermarket phase. The drug is probably already approved by FDA or others, EMA in Europe. And we started giving the drug to specific patients. So metrolactin for generalized lipodystrophy. This is the approved metrolactin drug for a specific type of patient. Now we give this treatment to the patient, and we want to collect new data, new side effects, new quality of life questionnaires from the patient. And if you take any medication, it has like this something huge. I will show you. Oh, you can't see me. This huge piece of paper with all kinds of instructions and all kinds of big words. But then at the end of this paper, you have a phone number or an email address. And it says, if you have a new side effect that we didn't write on this piece of paper, please call us and report this side effect. This is the aftermarket survey. So those are the phases of clinical studies. And most of the patients will go into a phase 2 or 3 clinical study, not phase 1, because they're very small. And all of us are actually a phase 4 clinical studies for other medication. Even if you're taking Advil, you are in a phase 4 clinical study for an Advil. Why is it working? Okay.
So what are
So
open label then? Where does open labels come in? Is that phase 4 then, or is that still a continuation of phase 3?
the labels,
Open label, like,
open label is a type of study. Okay, so we have open label study, which means you know what you're getting. It's an open label. Okay, we have several drugs or one drug, and you know which drug you're going to get.
okay,
Okay,
yeah.
we have another kind of clinical studies which are blind or double blind, which means you do not know what you're getting. You can get the medication or treatment, you can get placebo, right? You can get the standard of care medication. So let's say in cancer, okay, we have a clinical study about a chemotherapy, and we are not going to use placebo because the patient has cancer. We want to treat them. So we are giving another treatment, which is the standard of care, which is another chemotherapy, an old chemotherapy. So if it's an open label study, then you know exactly if you are getting the old medication or the new medication. If it's a blinded study, it means that the patient will not know what medication he's getting. So the old one or the new one. If it's a double-blinded clinical study, it means that no one in the study personnel, including patient, physician, study coordinator, knows what type of medication the patient is getting, except for the pharmacist, because the pharmacist is the one who is making the medication. So he's the only one who knows if they are getting the old medication, the new medication. Then at the end of the study, the company will open this record and will see if the patient got the old medication or the new medication. That's how they know how to do analysis on uh, the data. Is that clear?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay,
Sorry to
perfect.
digress about it. It was just,
Yeah. Yes, clinical studies are super complicated, and secrecy is something that we really work on to make sure that our results and data is super, super clear and super correct. So it's very important um, to know that. So Once your physician thinks you can go into a clinical study, you have basically 4 major periods in the clinical study for the patient. The first period is the screening period. That means that we need to make sure that the patient meets the inclusion-exclusion criteria. What it means that he has all the criteria to get into the study, which is the inclusion criteria, and the patient doesn't have any of the exclusion criteria. Let's say we take the metrelaptin study, one of them for PL, partial lipodystrophy. Patient need to have partial lipodystrophy. This is an inclusion criteria. Patients also need to have A1C above, I can't remember, 7, probably, right? And they need to have triglycerides above 500. Those are the inclusion criteria. If you do not meet those inclusion criteria, which means your A1C is lower than 7 or your trigs are lower than 500, you cannot get into the study and at this state of your disease. If it's higher, you can. Exclusion criteria can be if your liver enzymes in the blood work are too high, then you cannot go into the study. And the screening period, which is usually 30 days to 60 days, depends on the study, it's a very packed period. You need to do a lot of tests, a lot of physical examinations, a lot of signing forms. But the most important form that you're going to sign is the informed consent form, which means that the PI or the physician talk to you about the study and told you everything you need to know about the study, and you agreed to join the study. Once you sign this form, we can start doing all the tests. At the end of the screening period, we decided if you can join or cannot join the study. And if you can join, then you're starting with the second period, which is the study period. Okay? That means that you're getting the treatment or the placebo or the other treatment, depends on the study. This period can be a year, few months, several years, depends on the study. During this period, you're going to get the medication or the treatment, but you're also going to have many, many tests. And we talked about biomarkers, which I'll explain later, but also we are going to do images, we're going to do quality of life questionnaires, talking with study personnel about the study, and much more. Let's say you completed all the study period, which means for metrelaptin, you took it for a whole year. Now we're starting the follow-up period, which means you're going off the drug. That's one option. And now we're following up on you to see what happened after you stopped the drug. Or you're getting the drug through compassionate treatment, which means we think the drug worked. We don't want to stop you from taking the drug because we think it works. Then we will give you the drug for free, still from the pharma company, and we will follow you. So this is the follow-up. It can be many, many years until the final period of the study, which is the end of the study. The company or the physician stopped all study procedures, and now they're analyzing the data to see if they can ask the FDA to approve the drug, if they can go from a phase 2 to phase 3 clinical studies, and more. So why so many blood tests and imaging and questionnaires and all kinds of procedures during the clinical studies? The most important thing for a clinical study is to know if the drug is safe, what dose do we want to give the drug to our patient, if it works on our patient, and do we know which patient will respond to the drug or not. And we can only know if a patient will respond or not if we have biomarkers. A biomarker can be a blood test, imaging, and many other tests. And if we have a really good biomarker, we can make the treatment phase more personalized to patients, which means, let's say, a genetic test. If I have a specific gene or a mutation in a gene, and I have a specific drug that can help me with this mutation, then this is a good biomarker because I know that the drug will work on people with the specific mutation. If I don't have the mutation, the drug will not help me. So in lipodystrophy, one biomarker, which is not 100% correct yet, or we are not using it yet, is leptin levels. We know that most patients with low leptin levels with generalized lipodystrophy and some with partial lipodystrophy will have benefits from metraleptin. But it's not 100% because in biology, in medicine, we cannot do 100%. So the most important thing for a patient to know is that he or she can always go off the study. If it's too much for them, procedure-wise, if they have many side effects and they don't want to continue, if they're changing their lifestyle, location, and they don't want to continue, they can choose to quit. And also the physician or the company can say, listen, this is too much on you. We think you should stop. So you can always have a choice as a patient if you don't want to continue. And some of the risks and benefits for patients and for pharma companies. So for patients, we get early access for new treatments. Usually it takes between 12 years to 20 years to develop a new drug. And with patients sometimes need this drug way before it's approved by FDA. So clinical studies are a good way to get early access for this new treatment. Usually, patients in clinical studies like to be in a clinical study because they can see their physician more than once a year. So many check-ins, checkups, many blood tests, they feel more control. And of course, we have the risk, which are it's a new drug. We don't really know what is going to happen to us if we have any side effects. And one option is to get a placebo. So doing all the blood tests, all the procedures, flying to other countries or other states to do the clinical study, and at the end, getting a placebo. And of course, the drug company has its own benefits and risks. And many patients say we are just lab rats for the pharma companies, for the clinical studies. And it's not really true because we have our benefits and we have our risks. But we need to know that clinical studies cannot happen without patients. They need us to be in the clinical studies to give us more options and more treatments. We are the future of the disease. Sometimes we get into a clinical study, we don't know if it will help us or not, but it can definitely help the future generation of the disease. And they need and want our feedback. So we have a say. And just to mention two studies which are not with medication or treatment that are going on now in lipodystrophy, and any of you who has lipodystrophy and families of patients with lipodystrophy can join. So we have the Radiant study, which I know Gretchen is on, and myself. And this is for type 1 lipodystrophy and other diabetes, or how to control diabetes, unusual diabetes, they call it. And so we do questionnaires, we do blood tests, genetic testing to figure out if we can see a common dominant, how do I say it? If we can find something that is similar between all these types of diabetes, and maybe we can treat it better, and maybe we can get a genetic diagnosis for type 1 lipodystrophy. They're doing whole genome sequence, which is an expensive test, and you cannot do it usually by yourself. So if you have type 1 lipodystrophy, you can join Radiant. You can actually go to the website and join through the website. The other study is LD Link, which is a natural history study for genetic lipodystrophies, which means only the familial partial lipodystrophy and congenital generalized lipodystrophy, not the acquired types. And it doesn't matter if you're type 1, type 2, etc. It has to be a genetic component. And they do some clinical data, they collect quality of life questionnaires. And actually now we have a publication that's supposed to go out about this data. And you as patient can join, and your family can join as well, because they're studying family members as well. So if you're in the Michigan area or NIH, you can join both through Dr. Oral and Dr. Rebecca Brown. And we have it in other countries as well. So if you're interested and you are in the Michigan or NIH area, you can contact us or your physician, and they will know how to enroll you to these studies.
But you
And
have to be in the area, right?
you need, for the first visit, you need to be in the area. For Radiant, no, you can do everything online. But for LD Link, the first meeting, you need to be with a physician in one of the sites. You need to sign a consent form. We need to take your measurement and clinical data and quality of life.
You can
And then,
travel there, right? You can
yeah.
you can live anywhere. You just have to go to the site.
Oh, yeah, you need to be at the site at least for the first meeting.
Okay.
And then everything is online. And of course, we have the metrolactin studies. We have Regeneron studies with MIBA. I don't know how to say the name. It's too much for me. The MIBA studies. We have at the NIH some fat biopsies studies, but you need a physician to enroll you in these studies and suggest that these studies will be good for you. But we are always looking for new studies. We are looking for ways to enroll patients into these studies. And again, without patients, we cannot go forward with new treatments. So this was the presentation.